Welcome to The Explainer. Today, we're diving straight into something absolutely fascinating, FIUSS and the evolution of social finance. We're going to explore how this project is taking a 1,000-year-old Islamic tradition called Waqf and merging it with cutting-edge blockchain infrastructure. It's honestly nothing short of a true civilizational restoration project. 1 to 3 trillion US dollars. Just let that staggering figure sink in for a second. That is the estimated value of dormant assets sitting completely idle across the globe right now. We're talking about prime real estate, massive tracts of agricultural land, and critical infrastructure that are essentially economically paralyzed. Okay, let's dive into this. To really anchor that massive trillion-dollar number to reality, we need to understand the Waqf. A Waqf is a perpetual Islamic charitable endowment. By design, it's legally locked, meaning you can't sell or transfer the ownership of the asset. The whole point is to protect the principal so that its yields can continuously fund designated social and charitable causes forever. It's literally built to be a perpetual engine for social good. Now, to put the geographic scale of this sleeping giant into perspective, just look at how this locked wealth is distributed. The global sector is estimated at upwards of $2 trillion. But you see these massive concentrations in specific areas. Malaysia alone holds an estimated $325 billion in Waqf assets. Saudi Arabia has another $267 billion. It's an immense amount of wealth, heavily underutilized, spread across the 57 member states of the Organization of Islamic Cooperation. Think of it like this. Imagine a gorgeous, pristine, vintage Jaguar E-Type. It's worth a fortune. The engine is absolutely perfect, but it's sitting in a dark garage gathering dust simply because the owner lost the keys. That's the perfect analogy here. These Waqf assets aren't broken. They are incredibly valuable, but right now, they're paralyzed by rigid governance and severe illiquidity. For literally the last century, the legacy infrastructure managing these endowments has essentially acted like those lost keys. We have a multi-trillion-dollar global portfolio being managed through manual administration, paper registries, and totally isolated local authorities. The result? Total friction. You get opaque governance, missing records, and a massive inefficiency where these assets just can't be leveraged to raise the capital they need for development. So if we summarize this Waqf dilemma, it really boils down to a few core structural failures. You've got highly inefficient management coupled with a severe lack of transparency. The record keeping is incredibly fragmented, with an almost total absence of centralized registries. And because you can't easily prove ownership or audit the income trails, you get locked illiquidity. I mean, you simply cannot raise capital to build a new hospital on Waqf land if a bank can't definitively verify the legal and financial reality of that asset. Which brings us to the disruption: forging the digital key with the FIUSS-L2 protocol. If the Waqf assets are that locked-up vintage Jaguar, FIUSS is the digital key we've been waiting for. We are witnessing a profound paradigm shift here. We're moving away from a legacy system reliant on opaque, isolated, manual paper trust and stepping into a purpose-built infrastructure where trust is cryptographic. It's highly programmable, networked, and enforced by pure mathematics rather than slow bureaucracy. Now, what's really interesting about this architectural setup is the federated validator topology they call the node. Unlike the Wild West of public blockchains, where anyone with a laptop can spin up a node, FIUSS is a highly secure, permissioned Layer 2 network. The validators are geographically distributed, which makes the network incredibly resilient and censorship-resistant, while still remaining strictly Shariah-compliant. So who actually runs these nodes? Well, this is kind of the stroke of genius here. The validators are the very institutions that already govern the Islamic capital markets. We're talking about national Waqf boards, major Islamic banks, licensed custodians, and sovereign endowment organizations. This means that while the trust is decentralized across the network, it remains deeply institutionally anchored. The institutions themselves are the ones protecting and validating the network. And, they aren't doing this for free. FIUSS implements a really smart hybrid consensus model that combines proof of stake with proof of authority. These institutional validators actually stake their own capital to secure the network, and in return, they earn validation fees from all the transactions. It builds a completely self-sustaining economy that perfectly aligns the financial incentives of the banks, the regulators, and the Waqf authorities. Now let's look at the actual rollout strategy. Unlocking the vault, the three-phase evolution. You obviously can't just disrupt a trillion-dollar ecosystem overnight, right? To execute this safely, FIUSS uses a strategic three-phase evolution. Phase 1 builds the liquidity engine, the actual platform to tokenize these assets. Phase 2 establishes the Global Al-Waqf Foundation, serving as a regulated trust anchor to oversee all Sharia compliance. And finally, Phase 3 aims for the ultimate utility gateway, building the world's very first on-chain Al-Waqf digital bank. Let's move on and see how this builds a vertically integrated life cycle in practice. It's a clear pipeline. An asset is onboarded with proper due diligence, the foundation Sharia proofs it, FIUSS then tokenizes it for global investors, and finally, that digital bank creates real-world value, making sure the generated yields can be instantly spent, tracked, or reinvested. Drilling down into that tokenization module for a second, this is where the primary market magic happens. Instead of a Waqf board spending years hunting for a single billionaire or a massive bank loan to build a hospital, FIUSS mints real-world asset tokens. These represent fractional shares of the project, which are then sold to qualified investors. It completely democratizes the capital raise and injects instant liquidity into what were previously frozen assets. Which brings us to the final and perhaps most important piece of the puzzle: clean profit for the soul, the legacy. So the crucial point is how all of this advanced financial engineering serves a much higher legacy. It's about delivering clean profit for the soul. Once an asset is developed and starts generating rent or income, FIUSS uses smart contracts to automatically and transparently distribute those funds. In their reference model, 70% goes back to the investors, 20% goes directly to fund the Waqf's designated charitable purpose, and 10% is used to maintain the platform ecosystem itself. This completely shifts the entire paradigm. We're moving the Waqf away from a pure, traditional charity model and into a modern, blended finance model. Now, you can attract massive family offices, ESG-focused funds, and large institutional impact investors. They get a solid, reliable financial return on their capital while simultaneously powering an automated, perpetual engine of generosity, what is known in the Islamic tradition as Sadaqah Jariyah. I want to leave you with this really provocative thought, straight from the project's own documentation. We are staring at a multi-trillion-dollar sleeping giant right now, wealth that could absolutely transform the world, alleviate poverty, build critical infrastructure, and empower communities globally. The digital key has finally been forged. The infrastructure is being built as we speak. The only question remaining for the global financial community is, will they reach out and take it